Welcome to another segment of the Prop Drop. This week we're going over UFC Vegas 109, where I briefly go over every single matchup from a props perspective, give you my favorite props from the winner's side of things and the loser side of things in case you're looking for spots to hedge on. This is your spot. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. First matchup up, short notice matchup here in the light heavyweight division between Cody Brundage and Eric McConico. Normally, these guys are 185ers, but for some reason, the UFC decided to throw them on this card, and Brundage gets another fight after that weird matchup that he had against Mansour Abdul Malik back in June. I'm expecting a car crash here. Under 1.5, minus 135 sounds about right to me. There are no specific props out for this matchup as of yet, but I would go Brundage round one or McConico via knockout. Again, I'm expecting a car crash from jump. I think the under is probably the best spot in this matchup. Both guys somewhat untrustworthy at this point in time, but I'm going to go with Brundage round one as my favorite prop outside of the total that I just said. Next up, Gabriela Fernandes going up against Yulia Stoliarenko. Fernandes clearly at a striking advantage, and I think that's going to allow her to eventually set up a head kick that Stoliarenko will not be able to survive, and that should help cash a Fernandes by knockout ticket at plus 155. On the flip side, we know Stoliarenko, I call her the Lithuanian Ronda Rousey with 10 of her 11 pro wins coming by armbar. You can get her to win by submission at plus 550, which could be live considering how bad Fernandes has looked off her back in the past. The question is, can Stoliarenko get it there effectively and actually apply that submission? Next up, we got Uros Medic going up against Gilbert Urbina. Similar to the first fight of the night, I think we're going to see a car crash here. I think Medic will provide a lot of aggressiveness and pressure on Urbina that won't allow Urbina to tread at distance and utilize his range. I think we'll see Medic constantly close that pocket and eventually set up a knockout, which you can get Medic by knockout at minus 175. A little bit chalky for my liking, but I do like the under 1.5 at minus 150 in case Urbina is able to crack back, and we just saw Medic lose by knockout back in January. Another Medic prop here, Medic round one knockout is plus 190, which may not be a bad spot. And then on the flip side, if Urbina wins in round one, you can get plus 1,000. And again, with the aggressiveness that Medic normally brings, I think that could bring out some counter spots from Urbina. And if Medic is still compromised from that knockout from earlier this year, maybe Urbina can take advantage of that and do it early as well. But I like the under 1.5 most in that matchup. Next up, we got Jocelyn Edwards going up against Priscilla Cachoeira. I like me some Edwards in this spot, but I like the under 2.5 most at plus 150. 8 of the 11 UFC matchups for Cachoeira have finished inside the distance. I know Edwards has been more of a decision machine. I believe the first 8 fights in her UFC career went to the scorecards, but she's mustered up finishes in her last 2 matchups, and I think that's a testament to her confidence growing, especially since training closer with the flyweight champion Valentina Shevchenko. The big part of that game that I think Edwards has taken in is the grappling, and that's where we see Cachoeira often struggle against opponents, and I think that will lead to Edwards locking up a submission and forcing the tap, and it seems like the public is on that too, because that sub prop is down at plus 340 now. Now, if you want to try to add a little sizzle to it, you can go round 1 sub at plus 900 or round 2 sub at plus 1200, which I think is the latter of those two probably being the more viable one. But again, I love the under 2.5 at plus 150. On the flip side for Cachoeira, we know if she wins, probably comes by knockout, which you can get at plus 950. I'm not going to completely count out the possibility of her landing a big shot and getting Edwards out of there, but I think this will be Edwards putting on a grappling clinic and forcing that submission. All right, next up, we got Elijah Smith coming in as a super chalky favorite going up against Toshiomi Kazama. Smith will likely be looking to keep this fight in the upright realm where he can utilize his striking advantage, and I think that will lead to him eventually finding that knockout. But at minus 175, I'm not a big fan of that prop. On the flip side, for Toshiomi Kazama, you can get a submission prop at a plus 1,100, and that's his clear advantage in this matchup. He's very crafty, very good in terms of putting opponents into bad positions and then finding that dominant position to get the finish. The issue is the wrestling and the ability to actually close that gap between striking and grappling. So that's where I think Smith's athleticism, speed, and power is going to come into play, which will lead to Smith eventually finding that knockout. Next up, we got Julius Walker going up against Rafael Cerqueira. I think Walker's athleticism, power, and speed will be too much for the Brazilian fighter here, and I think we'll see Walker take command of this fight from jump. You can get Walker round 1 KO at plus 115, which is the way that Cerqueira has lost both of his UFC fights, and to me it just seems like he can't take too many big shots. Walker is normally a guy that looks to take opponents to the ground immediately and smash them from that top position, but I'm hoping he just puts the power and punching on Cerqueira, and that should lead to Walker finding that quick knockout. In the instance that he does take this fight to the ground and look for a submission, you can get Walker round 1 submission at plus 650. But again, I think it's going to be the knockout that ends up transpiring. On the flip side, if Walker gets a little bit too wild and Cerqueira can counter him and land some big power, you can get Cerqueira round 1 knockout at plus 1600. So not a bad hedge opportunity if that's what you're looking at. All right, next up, we got Christian Leroy Duncan going up against Eric Anders. I think this is a matchup where we'll see Duncan really crack the chin of Anders and eventually get him out of there. I think Duncan will land a big shot on Anders within the first round to 2 rounds, and I think from there he'll be able to put him away. We saw Weidman obviously drop Anders in their last fight, but unable to finish the job there. I think Duncan has that power and that athleticism to find the finish. You can get Duncan to win by knockout at plus 185. And then on the flip side for Anders, if he can establish his clinch bullying that he's been successful with against some of his opponents, you can get Anders to win by decision at plus 700. All right, next up, solid bantamweight matchup here between Gene Matsumoto and Miles Johns. I'm a big Matsumoto fan. I think he should be undefeated still, but lost that split decision to Rob Font last time around. In this matchup, I think he leaves no doubt. I think he either puts on a Muay Thai clinic and chops Johns apart and eventually wins this fight on the scorecards, which you can get at minus 120. Maybe he lands a big counter against Johns, puts him away by knockout, which you can get at plus 800. And then on the flip side, if Johns is able to secure some control time, maybe land a few big shots of his own and actually go to the scorecards, you can get Johns to win by decision at plus 400. But I think it's going to be the Brazilian who ends up getting his hand raised by judge's decision. All right, next up, we got Christian Rodriguez going up against Andre Fili. The only issue I have with Rodriguez's game is the fact that he's fighting at 145 pounds. He is a 135er, and I think that's going to cause him to suffer in some of these matchups. This is a very winnable fight against Fili, though. Rodriguez is the better overall fighter, better mixed martial artist, and more dangerous. I think Rodriguez could actually get this into a position where he can get a submission victory, which you can get at plus 500. If he does end up just putting together a good enough mixed martial arts performance and takes this to the scorecards, he could win by decision, which you can get at plus 120. And then on the flip side for Fili, I'd kind of be surprised if he finishes Rodriguez here. I don't think he has as sneaky of a submission game as Julian Rosa, nor do I think he has the knockout power to take Rodriguez out of there either. So if Fili wins, it probably comes on the scorecards, which you can get at plus 350. All right, next up we got Angela Overkill Hill going up against the Yasmin Lucindo. I'd be surprised if either of these women produce a finish, but it is the underdog that I think is going to pull off the upset. You can get Angela Hill to win by decision at plus 195. If you were lucky and actually pulled the trigger on Hill earlier this week, you were able to get her money line around that plus 190, plus 200 mark. But now you're going to have to settle for the decision at plus 195 if you're seeking a prop. For Lucindo, grappling, ground control, grinding this fight out. If she wins, probably comes on the scorecards, which you can get at minus 110. All right, co-main event in the flyweight division, we got Steve Erceg looking to snap a 3-fight losing streak going up against Ode Osbourne, who's looking to build upon a big knockout victory over Louis Garul as a big underdog as well. I think if Erceg wins, I think he puts together a better package here and wins this on the scorecards. You can get him to win by decision at plus 220. You can get Erceg round 3 in case Osbourne slows down, as he often does. It's plus 650 though, so not as juicy as you normally like to see for a round 3 prop. And then on the flip side, I think there are some very juicy props here on the Osbourne side to pull off the upset. One being the round 1 knockout prop at plus 2,000, or for him to replicate what he did last time around to Louis Garul, round 2 knockout at plus 2,900. So if you find yourself in that position where you found yourself parlaying Steve Erceg in spots that you probably shouldn't have, or you parlayed him too much, those are your 2 props to kind of lean on in terms of a hedge opportunity, in my opinion. All right, main event time where we got Roman Dolidze looking to stop the run of Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. I think Hernandez wins. I think his late props are always in play. I'm thinking it's going to be a round 4 or round 5 submission, but let's quickly break down all of these props that we have that are very live for Anthony Hernandez. Now, strictly round props. Round 3 plus 850. Round 4 plus 1,000. Round 5 plus 1,100. Now, if you want a tie method of victories to those as well, we'll start off with submission, which is what I think is going to end up happening here. Round 3 submission plus 1,400. Round 4 submission plus 1,600. Round 5 submission plus 1,800. And then if he's able to maybe get a position where he's not able to get a submission, but he can rain down some shots and get a TKO, you can look at his KO round props as well. So round 3 KO plus 2,100, round 4 KO plus 2,500, and round 5 KO plus 2,800. The one I'd lean on most, I'd say, is round 4, round 5 sub, 1,600 or 1,800, or even just picking the round 4, round 5, 1,000 and 1,100. But yeah, I think it's going to be those late props here for Hernandez that end up coming through. On the flip side for Dolidze, I think for him to win, it probably comes early. Dolidze round 1 KOs plus 1,800, which is actually not too shabby. And then round 2 KO at plus 2,300. I think if this reaches that third round, Hernandez really starts to take over, really starts to establish his dominance, and continuously put Dolidze in those spots until he can find that finish, which I think, again, probably happens in round 4 or round 5. So a ton of juicy props all over the place here for this main event card. Let's see where it ends up landing. All right, that is a wrap on the UFC Vegas 109 content for the week. I'll be back on Sunday for the Dana White Contender Series Week 1 breakdown. I love Contender Series season. I cannot wait to break down fights for you guys every Sunday for the Tuesday fights. Obviously, I'll have track plays for those on the Lock of the Night Patreon page as well. I'll obviously have written breakdowns before I drop the video for you guys, so that's something to look forward to on the Lock of the Night Patreon page. And that ultimately means that the MMA Lockcast for UFC cards is officially going to be moved to Mondays as of now, at least for the next 10 weeks. At least while Contender Series is on, we'll be doing the Lockcast for UFC shows on Mondays. So there you guys go. All right. Good luck on all your action this weekend. Again, remember, KSW, Octagon, and PFL Africa going down Saturday morning before the UFC card, which is kind of early as well. I think it kicks off 4:30 p.m. Eastern time for the prelims. But yeah, all of my track plays, all that good stuff can be found on the Lock of the Night Patreon page. Hopefully, I'll see you guys over there. Hopefully, we can cash some tickets with some of the information I've dropped for you guys throughout the week. And I'll see you guys again on Sunday for the Contender Series. Good luck. Peace.